leaders burn out because they've ignored their internal signals for too long. And most of them don't even realize they're doing it. I want to take you into a moment where my body knew something my mind hadn't caught up to yet, because I think you'll recognize yourself in it. I was in a meeting with two people I was partnering with. We'd been exploring ways to expand what they were offering, and I could see this really clean opportunity. It was an advisory arm that would sit along their existing work. I'd already mapped the insight, the structure, the pathway, and it was strong, really commercially strong. And honestly, I was so proud of it, and it was mine. So I laid it all out, the idea, the reasoning, the steps. And the second I finished, I felt the room shift. And it wasn't because the idea wasn't good, it's because it was good. And I'd seen this before, this micro reaction that some people have when someone brings something powerful, clear, and fully formed to the table. It was a subtle tightening, a flicker. I felt it. And what should have happened next was a conversation about partnership, a conversation about alignment, how we would build things together. But that's not what happened. Instead, they told me they wanted to bring my idea into their business. They wanted me to hand over my IP, my clients, my business, everything I had built and operate underneath their arm, as if the idea had come from them, as if they were doing me a favor. And in that exact moment, before I had a single thought, my body reacted. I pulled back. It tightened. I felt a full body recoil and a very clear no. It was physical, it was immediate, and it was undeniable. And instead of overriding it, instead of smoothing it over and staying polite and making it palatable, I listened. I let myself sit in that tightening for a second longer, and then I spoke. Calm, clear, not defensive, not emotional, just true. I said, "You're asking me to hand over my business and receive nothing in return. Is that right?" And when they tried to strong arm me, insisting the idea was theirs, I didn't move. I said, "I respectfully disagree." I said, "This is what I've created, and I propose this to you. Every insight and this whole idea came from me." And the room went still. And in that stillness, I realized something important. My body had told me the truth long before the conversation finished. This wasn't about the partnership. It wasn't about the idea. It wasn't even about them. It was about the moment I chose not to override myself. The moment I trusted the intelligence that arrived first, the physical one. That was the shift. That was the clarity. That was the moment I walked out with my work, my integrity, and my voice intact. Now, I tell you that story because I see a version of this in almost every leader I work with. The moment they overrode something real, the moment they stayed quiet when their body was screaming, the moment they were keeping the peace, but at the cost of themselves. And you know that moment. You've probably had it more than once. Your body is your first intelligence. It tells you the truth before your mind has any language for it. And we've all had those moments. And you know it because something feels off, but you override it because you don't want to make a fuss, but you feel a tightening in your chest. And you think you need to push through because you should be able to handle it. And you say yes, even though your whole system is screaming no. But that's the body speaking. And most leaders have spent decades overriding it. And we override it because we're capable. And we override it because we're responsible. And we override it because we don't want to disappoint anyone. And we override it because we've been trained to trust our mind more than our internal intelligence. But the body always knows first, and it knows when something isn't aligned. It knows when you're carrying too much. It knows when you're performing instead of leading. It knows when you're betraying yourself to keep the peace. And the cost of overriding, well, it's subtle at first. Tension, fatigue, resentment. But over time, it becomes your normal. Leaders burn out because they've ignored the internal signals for too long. Truth-based leadership isn't emotional, it's honest. And it means being honest with yourself first. When you start listening to your body, your decisions naturally just get clearer. Your boundaries get clearer. Your presence gets steadier. And you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop abandoning yourself. You stop performing. And you start leading from truth. If something in this episode is landing for you, if there's a signal you've been overriding that just got a little louder, I'd love to hear from you. That's exactly where this work begins. And you can find me at mariannekatsidas.com, or you can send me a message directly. You can find all of those details in the description below. I read everything. Until next time, Marianne.